Today I'm going to walk you through the steps of creating a web page for your toolkit. To do that, you're going to need to open up whatever browser you use. I like Google Chrome, so just know that I'm showing you all of this in Google Chrome. And I'm going to show you how to make a website using a program called Weebly, weebly.com. There are many web publishing sites that you can use. There is a list in D2L. They include things like Google Sites and Wix and several others. I like Weebly. It's the one that I'm most familiar with. So for you, if you have not been using Weebly before, you're going to need to come here to sign up for an account in order to create a website, and it will walk you through the steps of signing up. However, I already have an account and many web pages, so I'm going to log in. Let's see if I remember my login. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to tell it, no thanks, I don't want to create engaging emails right now. For me, I'm going to come here to Sites, which you would do the first time that or after you've created your website. This is an old site that I made, Rethinking Thanksgiving, so I don't want to deal with that one right now. I'm going to click on this down arrow, and it should give me the option to add a site, which is what I'm going to do. See if I can close this little bar. Gonna let me? No. Okay. What is the focus of your site? You're going to want to select site and not blog, not store, because it's going to give you better layout options. So the first step in creating your web page is to pick a theme. And this is relatively, I was going to say unimportant, although it is important, but it's just up to you. What kind of design aesthetic do you like? There are tons of different designs. So I'm going to quickly scroll through and see if there are any that stand out to me. Personally, clean and minimal is one I use a lot. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go back up here. I liked this one, Lucent. Now, if you want to see more options, it usually gives you a preview. Let's see if it does give us a preview. It did not give me a preview. Okay, oh well. You can always change this later, and I'll show you how if you're unhappy with what this layout looks like page by page. Okay, what you're going to want to do is create a subdomain of Weebly.com. The reason that you want to do this is because it's free. So use a subdomain of Weebly.com, and you get to pick what you want to call your website. It should be related to your toolkit itself. So for me, I'm making a toolkit about civil rights in Milwaukee. So civil rights in Milwaukee. It is available as told by this green arrow. So that's great. I'm going to click continue. And actually, really quickly, let me switch over here to enter full screen. That should help us out a little bit. Perfect. Okay. It went away with my site. So it went back to Rethinking Thanksgiving. So I'm going to come back to this down arrow, and I will see here civil rights in Milwaukee. I haven't given it a title yet, however, so I do need to do that. Let's edit the site. My internet is moving a little slowly because I'm in a hotel recording this for you. Okay, so let me just show you the parts of Weebly, and then I'll walk you through actually laying out your pages. Okay, this right here, build, is probably the most important part as you're getting started. Weebly has a whole bunch of building blocks to make laying out a website easy for you. Over here are the basic options that you can choose for how to lay out your website. There's titles, text, images, galleries of images, slideshows, maps, contact forms, entering hyperlinked buttons. If you are fancy, which I am not, you could embed HTML codes. You're going to be using a lot of dividers and spacers to lay out your pages, so you really do want to use these a lot. And you also have the option of inserting media, which you will be doing if you're using multimedia, and you may want to link to some documents throughout the way. We're not selling anything, so we don't need to worry about that. These are also some more block quote you may want to use to make your pages beautiful. Now remember that layout design is not really part of the grade of the toolkit. These are websites that you're putting together for real people, so you do want to be aware of how you're laying out the website. But I'm not evaluating you on how good you are at website design. That's not the purpose of this course, but I do think it's important for you to know how to lay out a website, both for content and for your classroom. Before I start laying this out, let me just show you these other options that are up here. So build, this is where you're going to begin for each page. Pages gives you the table of contents, and it allows you to add pages, delete pages, and change the titles. We're going to do that in a moment. If you're unhappy with your design theme, you can change it here by changing the theme. You can select a different set of fonts if you wanted for various parts of your pages, and we'll go through that in a minute. You can also change the background. So I'm going to start by changing the background because this photo of the ocean and a boardwalk doesn't really fit civil rights in Milwaukee. Now, if I have my own photos, or I have found through Creative Commons publicly licensed photos, I can select my own photo and add it here. And I'm going to show you how to do that later. For now, I'm going to look for any of these photos that seems like it may connect to my topic. Let's see if there's anything that looks like it might relate to civil rights in Milwaukee. Obviously none of these really do, but there might be something. Let's see, lots of pictures of cities. That's Chicago, but we're not in Chicago. Lots of travel and outdoors. I mean, I could use this one. It's a group of interracial children. It's kind of lame. Let's see what else is here. If I wanted to say that civil rights is successful, maybe that one. Then we're getting into nature shots. You can see there's a ton of photos. Some of them are going to be more appropriate, but these are all for public use. You can use them on their website. That's why they're here. If I wanted to get my own image, I could go here to upload image. And actually, I'm going to show you how to do that really quickly because I'm dissatisfied with any of these for my topic as a background. So I'm going to open up a new tab. I'm going to go to Creative Commons. I'm going to Google Creative Commons. And I'm going to click on search because I'm searching for media. I want something that I can, this is not commercial. Commercial would be if you were selling your work, and we're not selling our work. But you're going to be putting it into a website with titles and things like that on it. So you do want to modify, adapt, or build upon it. So I'm going to type up here, enter your search query, civil rights Milwaukee. I'm going to start specific. Let's see what happens. Ooh, I don't want open art clip art. Good mistake. I'm looking for images, so I'm going to click on Flickr. And will it let me... Okay, so these are all images that come up under Creative Commons. Safe search is on. What that means is that it is checking for copyright. I don't want to join Flickr. See if it'll allow me to modify my church. Let's select modification allowed. There we go. Ooh. Okay, so I've just found an image that I think is going to be better for my web page for the background. These are all available for modification, meaning that anyone can use them as long as you're not using them to sell something. I like this photo in part because I know that here Peggy Roska was married to Father Grappy, and she's one of the leaders of the Milwaukee Civil Rights Movement. I also really like this banner, Schools and Communities United, that says still separate, still unequal, fulfill the promise. Because I know what my essential question is, and I'm going to explain that in a moment. So I'm going to select this image. I'm going to click on it. And in Flickr, I am allowed to download images, which I'm going to do right here. I'm going to download it as original. I'm going to save it to my desktop just so I know where it is, and because I'm not going to keep it on my computer for very long. And it is now downloading over here, as you can see. Once it's finished downloading, I'm going to close this bottom bar. I'm going to come back to Weebly, and I'm going to upload an image. Upload an image from my computer. I'm going to go to my desktop because that's where I saved it. And here it is, that first image. Open. Let's see if it likes it. Ooh, okay. So I've got to make it smaller. So I'm going to come back here to Flickr. I'm going to download it again. Let's see if it'll let me download as medium. There we go. Save. And it's done. Okay. That was a JPEG file, as you saw, so that's how I'm going to know it's there. Upload a file from your computer. I could have just dragged it from, actually, let me show you how to do that as well. I could just drag it. There we go. I have a new image background. Okay. Save right here. Save to all pages. And I can't really see these people. So I may end up changing the photo later, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so let's go back to build. This is my entry page that we are on right now. I want to title my website. So here it is, my site. I'm going to go ahead and type a title here for my site. That does not have to be the same name that you gave it in Weebly, but I'm going to go ahead and call it Civil Rights. Actually, I'm going to say the Civil Rights Movement in Milwaukee. A toolkit for teachers. That's the title of my website. Okay, I'm now going to add a headline, which in the case of my opening page, so actually let me back up a step. This opening page is where you are going to share your overarching essential question, where you're going to give a brief introduction to the topic, and where you're going to give a preview of the content that is in your toolkit. This is the main landing page, the opening page, and so you want to give an overview. So my overview here is it's going to have my essential question. I'm going to put it as the title. Was the civil rights movement successful? I have two essential questions, however, so I'm going to have that. How are Milwaukee's racial struggles today connected to the movement's successes or failures? I don't really like the way that looks. You can see it's a little crowded. So I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to say essential question. I like that better. Here, click to add description. Here's where I'm going to write my essential question. Was the civil rights movement successful? And I'm going to do these on separate lines. How are Milwaukee's racial struggles today connected to the movement's successes or failures? I don't like that those are in separate lines, however, but I think that'll be different when, let's see if this, that's going to take me back. I think it's going to space out, so I think it's okay. Okay, button text is usually a hyperlink somewhere. So what would I want to hyperlink to? I might want to change this button text to, I get to type it here. Maybe I want this to be my collection of lessons. And then I'm going to come through and add a link in a little bit when I make my collection of lessons. So, perfect. That's my landing page. Okay, here's where I'm going to get to use these options over here in Basic. Now, I can choose a predetermined layout. It's going to take a moment. Or it's going to take longer than a moment. Okay, let's close that for now. Actually, let's come back for a moment. Let's come over here to pages. We'll lay out pages in a moment. Let's talk about all the different pages that you need. Okay, obviously you need a home page. That's what we just started creating. You are going to need a page, and I'm going to change the titles of these pages. I'm going to change this to background. The background page is where you're going to give your content analysis paper. I'm going to come back. To go back, I always use this back arrow. I don't want a contact page necessarily, so I'm going to go ahead and change that one to resources for teachers. This is the page where I'm going to include my annotated bibliography, but I'm not going to call it annotated bibliography because this is a website that I want people to actually use. Now, that's not enough pages for what I need, so I'm going to add a plus right there. I'm going to add a standard page. And the next page that I need is going to be called assessment. Save. And actually, it was short header for everything before, so I'm going to go ahead and call it short header. And actually, what that means is, what does this page look like? So there's a tall header, which has got a whole other photo. No header, which you may end up choosing later. A landing page, which means you've got this button text. I don't know what splash is. Oh, it's just like a photo. A title page. Which is actually probably what I'm going to end up using on all of my pages. Okay, so save. That's my assessment page. I'm going to add another one. It's again going to be a standard page. I'm going to call this one working with documents. This is going to be my journey box. And again, I'm going to make it a title page. Save. And I need one more, which is another standard page, and I'm going to call this one collection of lessons, or just lessons. Again, I'm going to make it so that it's a title page. I'm not grading you on design, but one design element that you should be aware of is consistency. So because every page is going to have a title, I'm going to make that a title. Let's go back here to background, and I'm going to make that a title. Perfect. Yeah, let's go back. Resources for teachers. Also, I'm going to make that a title. Got an email. Okay, I think those are all the pages that I need. Now, if I just want to start editing any of the pages, all I have to do is click over here. I could go to background, and now I could start editing the background page. Click to add headline. I could just call it background, or I could give it a more provocative title. I'm going to call it, let's see, background information. It's not a very exciting title, but I'm going to have a subtitle here if I want background information. Thinking critically about civil rights in Milwaukee. Okay, so this is my content analysis page. I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to change all the titles now. Resources for teachers. I'm going to add a headline here. Resources for teachers. I'm going to add a subtitle. An annotated bibliography to help in designing instruction. Perfect. Back. Assessment. Authentic assessment. I'm going to call it a project-based approach to assessing student learning about civil rights in Milwaukee. Okay, I'm being a little inconsistent in my capitalization, but that's okay. Let's fix it. That was resources for teachers. I like it better not capitalized. So I could go back and change all of that, and I should. Okay, working with documents. I'm going to actually call this working with documents, a journey box guiding students through civil rights in Milwaukee using documents. Great. Using artifacts, I'm going to call it. And actually, I'm going to change the title of this page to Working with Artifacts. Please remember also that as you're watching this video, if I'm moving too fast for you, you can pause it and go back to see what I've clicked, okay? So working with documents, let me change this title here. So I'm going to control click. Is it going to let me? No. There it is. Working with artifacts. That's a more accurate title. Okay. And then my last page was lessons. I'm going to call that lesson. A collection of lessons about civil rights in Milwaukee. Okay, every page is titled. Now it's time to design these pages, but you know the components of what you need to include. So I'm going to go back to my home page. And now I want to build it. So I can't build it when I'm up here in pages. See how that's selected? So I'm going to come back here to build. And now it's time for me to lay out my page. Okay, this is my home page that's got my essential question. Was the civil rights movement successful? How are Milwaukee's racial struggles today connected to the movement's successes or failures? I'm going to eventually, oh, I can add this link now because I created the page. So I want to add a link to a standard page. I'm going to scroll down to lessons. Great. Okay. I've added a link. It's that easy. Okay, now I get to build the main part of this page. This is my introductory page. So here I've got my essential question. That's one requirement. And then I need to have a brief introduction to my topic and why I've chosen the information that I have, the questions that I have, and the content that I have. So I can choose a layout. Let's try that again. Let's see if it lets me choose a layout. Here we go. So these are pre-designed layouts. I don't really want to use any of these because they don't quite meet my text-heavy needs. So I'm going to come back over here, and I am going to insert a text box. All I do is drag and drop. I've got a text box now. Here is where I am going to write my introduction to the toolkit. This is different than your content analysis paper. This is where I explain why I'm asking these questions, why I've chosen these resources, and why this topic matters. This introduction is going to be different for all of you and for all of your topics, but this is a chance for you to set someone up to what they're about to see in your toolkit. Then I need a place where I'm going to explain what my toolkit includes. Now, I want to point out something here called spacer. Instead of hitting return, which is really going to kind of mess with what my web page looks like when people pull it up, whenever I finish a paragraph or a section, I like to use a spacer. This blue line right here, if you see it, indicates where the spacer goes. So I can move it above where I just wrote if I want more space up there. I can add it in front if I want this to be, I'll show you. So now I've got 2 columns. I don't really like that though. So I can either delete my spacer or I can simply move it. I can move it to the right side. I've got 2 columns again. And here I can have, yeah. I don't want that though right now, so I'm going to drag it down below. Okay, so it's going to create a space between the text that I just wrote and the text that comes next. In this case, I'm using text. So I'm going to grab another text box and drag it beneath the spacer. And you know what? I need a title. So I'm going to drag that above my text box beneath the spacer. Notice how I'm paying attention to where the blue line is to show me where I'm dragging. Okay, so this is my title. Toolkit Contents. Click here to edit. Background. Now, I could get really, okay, so I could do this really basic. Background provides a critical analysis of curricular approaches to the topic. And I could keep typing the return, and I could say, I can remember what I called them, background resources for teachers. Resources for teachers in annotated bibliography of diverse resources for teaching about the topic. Okay, I could type that. And I can keep typing the pages. So I can just do this as one big paragraph, and I can simply boldface so it's a little clearer. If I want to get fancy, which takes a little bit more time, I could bring a text box down. No, I want it down here. Is it going to let me bring it down? It did. Okay, so here I'm going to call it background. I'm going to boldface that. Well, actually, what comes next is not background. Let's say we've got assessment. I'm going to boldface that, and I'm going to call it assessment. Okay, and I want 2 columns. So I'm going to get a spacer again. And I'm going to drag it to the right. Is it going to let me drag it to the right of assessment? It is not. So I'm going to delete that. Yes, I'm sure. Let's try it again. It'll let me do 2 columns this way. So I'm going to drag another text box. Maybe I don't want a spacer here. I'm going to delete that spacer. Yes, I want to delete it. I'm going to delete this text box. Okay, it brings assessment back over there. I'm going to bring a divider. That's what I wanted. Is it going to let me assessment? No, it's not. Now I'm going to bring another text box here on the side of the divider. Okay, it's not working. So you can see though, this is how you can play with dividers and spacers and text boxes and titles. These are the components that you're going to want to use. What I was trying to show you, and I'll do that again, delete, delete. I'm going to bring a spacer in here. Okay, now it should let me create another text box. Okay, text, and I want to make this 2 columns is what I was trying to do. So let's get another text box. There we go. 2 text boxes. And it's got a dividing line between them. I can move where this line is. Awesome. Okay, now I can type. So what was the next page that was coming next? Assessment. I'm in a boldface, it's kind of a title, and over here I can say a performance-based authentic assessment for checking student understanding around civil rights movements, successes, and failures. I need another text box because assessment is not my only piece. I still have working with artifacts and lessons. So I'm going to add another text box down below, beneath assessment. And I'm going to add another text box. So it's 2 columns, so it continues to be 2 columns. Perfect. And I'm going to drag this line. So it's the same as here. I'm going to call this, oh, why did it delete? It deleted me. Well, working with artifacts, boldface. Click here to edit a set of 5 traces in the artifacts to lead students through exploration of the topic. And what was this? An authentic assessment that, I don't remember what I said before, that applies learning to the real world. And I could add my last page too. Now, obviously, you don't want to have different layouts. So you can see this takes more time to add spacers and dividers, although I think it looks better than simply doing paragraphs. But you're not graded on your layout. I would like you to play around a little bit with layout. It's not that hard, and once you get going, you'll be able to lay that out pretty quickly. Okay, so this is my homepage. Okay, so let's go to the other pages and talk about what needs to be included. So I'm going to come up here to background. Background information, thinking critically about civil rights in Milwaukee. This is simply where I have my content analysis paper. Now, you can do 2 things. You could just drag a text box and cut and paste your content analysis paper here. You could also play with spacers and dividers. For each paragraph. You could also link to the paper as a PDF. I would add a link even if you are going to cut and paste. So to add a link, I would highlight wherever the word is that I want to have the hyperlink, link. This little symbol is a chain link. Insert link, and I'm going to link to a file. Let's pretend that this is my content analysis paper. It's PDF. I selected it, and I want it to open in a new window. Done. I have linked. Click back. There you go. It's a different color now to show that there is a link. Okay, so that's the background information page. Pretty straightforward. Let's go to resources for teachers. An annotated bibliography to help in designing instruction. Again, I can simply drag a text box and I can cut and paste my annotated bibliography. That's the easiest approach. Another option is to use spacers, dividers, and text boxes to make columns. So I could also bring a text box, drag it down, bring another text box, drag it to the right. And so maybe here is where I'm going to have the title and the information. So let's go back, Civil Rights Milwaukee. March on Milwaukee, that's what I was trying to remember. Okay, so say this is one of the items in my toolkit. The March on Milwaukee Civil Rights History Project. Come back here to Weebly. This was going to be my title. March on Milwaukee Civil Rights History Project. I'm going to boldface that because it's a title. I'm going to scoot this. Yeah. Okay, click here to edit. A collection of artifacts gathered at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, all devoted to civil rights history here in Milwaukee. Includes photos, videos, news articles, and more. Teacher may want to use this as a you guys get to see a text that comes to my computer, to use this as the primary source for finding documents to teach with. Okay, so what I've done here, so I could cut and paste my annotated bibliography just in a single text box. That's fine. Your website will look better if you use text boxes, spacers, dividers, etc. to create columns like this. So on the left is actually what the source is, the title, your APA citation, whatever the case may be, and on the right is your annotation. Since this is a website, I need to create a link. Link, website URL. I'm going to come up here, I'm going to copy and paste, Command Z, I want Command C, come back to Weebly. Now I'm going to paste it here into a new window. Done. The font has changed color, so that's how I know there's a link. Okay, and I would add all my annotations here. Assessment. Authentic assessment, a project-based approach to assessing student learning about civil rights in Milwaukee. You can either, maybe I want to give this a title. Taking action locally on racial inequality. Let's say that my authentic assessment, which I have not designed, is actually about students taking action and writing letters to the school board or to the mayor or someone like that. So I gave it a title, and now I'm going to write a text box. I can cut and paste my assessment description here. And I should add links to any resources that I use. So let's say I've got a document that I'm going to be using. I would go ahead and add a link, and it's going to be a file because it's something that I created. Okay, again, you can play with moving text boxes to make columns, spacers, dividers, etc. Okay, working with artifacts. This page is probably going to be the most complicated for layout because this is your journey box. So you should, in this journey box, you should be including the specific images, artifacts, documents that you want to use. So you're really going to have to play with layout on this page. This is probably going to be the most time consuming. Let's go to browse. Let's use collections, A to Z. I want photos. Let's go back. Browse media types. Photographs. I just want to download an image. Okay, so let's say that this is the image that the first image that I want to use in my journey box. I can copy it, copy image, or I can add a link to it depending on what the copyright is. I'm not sure what the copyright is, so I would need to check that. But in any case, I'm just going to show you this for an example. So this time I'm going to need to drag an image. I can upload an image. I can do it using a URL. So let's go to open image in new tab. There it is. I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to copy the link. Insert. Ooh, it won't let me. Okay. Let's see if I can find a JPEG. Well, this one was a JPEG. So let's click on that. Well, let me look. Well, let's see. Okay. In any case, if the link is a JPEG, so that would work if I went to Images, Google. So if the image that I was using was available as a JPEG, so Civil Rights Milwaukee, view image, there. It needs to have the JPEG extension, so I'm going to copy that. Now, obviously, you've already selected your images because you have handed in your journey box. So you're just going to have to decide what's the best way to include that information. There's my image. Okay. Now, next to it, I'm going to need to include, and I want this to be 2 columns, my questions. Here is where I would write my guiding questions about the image. Okay. So I can add another image down here, or I could add a link, or I could add a paragraph, or I could add a document, whatever the case may be. But they should be right here on this page. Now you'll notice, and actually I want to point this out on all the pages, my essential questions should be visible on every single page. So what I want to do here is add a text box above all of this. Notice that I can have the text box just above the photo, which is not what I want. I can have it just above the text, which is not what I want. Or I can have it over both of them. So that means it's up here. So here I'm going to write essential questions. I actually think I want a title though. So here's where my essential questions are. Was the civil rights movement successful? How are Milwaukee's racial struggles? I could have cut and pasted this text just from the front page as well. Today, connected to its successes or failures. Okay, so there's my essential questions. I want to add a title though, so I'm going to add that up. But actually, I'm going to add it to the left. I'm getting fancy. Essential questions. Okay, I'm going to add a title here as well. Did it make it? Yeah, great. Artifact 1, open housing, March. Okay. And then I'm going to add maybe another title down here. Artifact 2, Father Groppy's speech. Okay. Now, I don't really like the way this title is right up under the previous photo, so this is an example of where I would use a spacer. There, it created a space. I could also add a divider if I want to have a line there, right under the spacer. So you can see what this looks like. Okay, and I could keep going. Last but not least is the lesson page. Again, you can do a couple things. You can simply drag and drop a text box, cut and paste the contents of all lesson plans. I think that's your worst option here. Another option is I can go lesson 1, description of what it is. Lesson 2, description. Lesson 3, description. Lesson 4, description. Lesson 5, description. And then up here where it says lesson 1, I can add a link to a PDF. I would go to file and I would add the link. And so it could just be the 5 lessons with like a 1 to 2 sentence description, and then the reader could click on lesson 1 where you've just created a link and it would open up a PDF. That's another option. A third option is to create separate text box for each lesson, and then so I could also do a separate text box for each lesson cut and paste the content here. Remember, I also here, I could have used text boxes to add columns and get fancy. Okay, that is it, believe it or not. I want to make sure a few things that I didn't do here. Let me come back to home. I forgot to include contact information for myself. So down here, I want to add, I believe there was an option for contact information, but I may have been wrong. I was wrong. Okay, I'm just going to add another text box down here on the front page, and I'm going to say contact me, or contact Melissa, or whatever the case may be. I could do this a couple ways. I could add a link to an email. Here it is, melissagibson@marquette.edu. So now, if they click on my name, it's going to pop up an email screen. So you want to add contact information down here. Okay, this is what it looks like when I'm editing, but I need to see what readers are going to see. So up here, I'm going to select Publish. It's reminding me that this is the title, and I actually want to change it. I don't want that in there. I want, oh, it's taken. Civil Rights Milwaukee. That's what I'm going to use. Continue. Publishing my site. Now I can see what it looks like. I'm going to click on the link. And this is what a reader is going to see of my website. Everything that I just created with you. Background, resources for teachers, assessment, working with artifacts, and lessons. So you can see that this is pretty straightforward. I imagine I've been working on this for, you've been watching this video for about a half hour or so. So that's how long it took me to do this basic layout. Once you start adding things in, I imagine that it will only take you a couple hours, maybe 2, to add in all of your layout. You may want to start laying it out now, or you may want to wait till the very end. Either way is fine. Again, if there were any parts that were confusing or that you needed more modeling of, I recommend that you go back and you pause the video on those parts to see where I clicked and what I did. Please feel free to email or chat with me if you have any questions about what I just did, and good luck. I look forward to seeing your pages and your toolkits.